So the last time we left off, we were talking about Vermont and secession regarding the time of the American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence as kind of that first and unique act of where that type of idea starts taking place in the form that we think of it today. That idea of even the name of declaring independence, that you exit from the political authority that you are under in order to replace that government with a different government, or the splitting up of a country, or the separation of a country. Now, after the American Revolution, there comes the peace treaty, the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which was Britain's full acknowledgement of the independence of the American states. So it acknowledges and even calls them free, sovereign, and independent states, and it relinquishes, meaning gives up, all claims to the government propriety, and territorial rights of the same and every part thereof. In other words, Britain, in the Treaty of Paris, it was agreed that they would give up governmental control of the American colonies. Now, does the United States with a capital U and a capital S technically exist at this point? And I would say that the answer is no. The United States there exists in the sense of a lowercase u and a capital S, meaning this, that there are 13 states, 14 now, soon including Vermont. There are 13 states that happen to be united, but they are 13 self-governing independent countries. So they are the United States in that sense, but they are not one state, one country with one government as we would think of it today. So the United States, capital U, capital S, does not technically exist yet. That's why technically this class should not be called US history, but even though you have to understand the background, but it should be called American history, because the United States as a sovereign government does not come into existence until the acceptance of the Constitution, which comes about later. So this is important. They're acknowledged, each of the 13 colonies, which became the states, are acknowledged as free, sovereign, and independent states. That means they control themselves with no higher government over them. That's what a country or a nation state is. So they are 13 different governments, not one. That recognition of the Treaty of Paris is Britain's maybe reluctant, somewhat reluctant, agreement to acknowledge that the American independence movement was successful. Now, during the time of the war, the states agreed to joining together in a confederation. They were already on the same team, but they wanted to make their team official and streamline some things through joining together with one confederate government. Now, a confederacy, that term is kind of loaded today, but just if you take it out of its historical context and in having a lot of weight attached to it in particular events, a confederacy just means a league or a team of states, a league or a team of countries that join together, agree to some common purposes, agree to fight together and defend each other in any wars or things of that nature. But no state is forced to join. They choose to join in order to win the Revolutionary War. However, and many actually don't want to join together into one confederacy. with the other states because they want to maintain their state's own independence. In addition to that, the states did join together, and then soon after, Britain was basically defeated and ready to give up. So the point of the Articles of Confederation were to try to get together one government and an early constitution for all the states on one team. And it was said it was necessary to win the war, but the war was basically won before the Articles could take effect. So in the Articles of Confederation, though, it talks about that each state is equal and maintains all the rule and control of itself, except what is specifically written down in this document, this contract that they agreed to. And so it says in Article 2 that each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by this confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled. Okay, so basically what it's saying there is the only powers that the states have given up are the ones written down in this contract. In other words, the government or the Congress of the United States could not tell individual states what to do or what not to do if this was not written down in the contract explicitly. So each state had to agree to join the Confederation. Each state retained its powers except for the ones given over in the Articles. Now, its technical name is the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. Perpetual, we kind of think of that word as meaning forever, right? But here's kind of the thing that why we're bringing this up in terms of talking about secession. We know for a fact that the Articles did not last forever, and that the states eventually all decided to stop participating in this agreement and choose instead to participate with each other through the US Constitution. So what's interesting about this is that it's an example of states after the Revolution being able to join and unjoin agreements according to their own will. Now, the question is, well, who gets to decide that for the states? There are different, because not every single person in a state agrees with that. Does the government of the state get to decide? Do the people all vote and get to decide? Does a convention get together and decide? You know, how does that work? But it is an example of states could choose to be part of an agreement and a union with other states, but they could also choose to leave it, which is an example of how the Constitution was started. Article 13 in the Articles of Confederation also said that to change this document, every single state had to agree. But eventually the states exited the Articles of Confederation. They said they were done participating in this agreement, and they, after joining, decided to unjoin and start a new team with the states under the Constitution. Now, the main question is, once they joined together in the Constitution, can they unjoin after starting a new team? So, even though the process was not followed, actually, there's an argument that they broke the rules of how to change this document because they didn't change it, they replaced it, and then the states chose something else. It was assumed that the states had a right to exit. The states left the Articles and joined the Constitution. Okay, Now we're going to look at the nature of the federal union, meaning what type of government, what type of agreement did the states join when they accepted the Constitution? How was the Constitution accepted or ratified by the states? Well, the Constitution says very clearly in Article 7, Section 1, that the ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states, so ratifying the same. Now, all that is saying is only those who join the team will be part of the United States in a technical legal sense. Only those who decide to join, only those states that decide to join will be part of this new team, this new league, this new government called the United States. The states had to voluntarily join, had to voluntarily agree to join the federal union. Now, the question is, if they voluntarily, in theory, legal theory, could choose to join the United States, could they choose to leave it? Let me give an example. If Virginia declared independence from Britain June 29th, 1776, and then Virginia fought along with the other states for its independence, and its independence was recognized at the end of the American Revolution. Virginia was a free and independent state. Then Virginia joined the other states in the Articles of Confederation. Then, a few years later, Virginia decided it was done with participating in the Articles of Confederation, and it decided in 1788, by a fairly narrow vote in a convention, to join the United States under the Constitution. Now, the question is, Virginia has shown that it was a free, sovereign, and independent state. Now, if I think it was 89 people to 79 people who were at the convention where Virginia voted to join the United States. So the vote was fairly close. That means 89 people in Virginia in 1788 decided that the state would join the other states under the Constitution and the federal government described in that document. Now, the question is, if the state of Virginia or the people of the state of Virginia or their representatives, if they decide that they want to exit the United States, can they do that? Or do they have to be bound by the decision of 89 people made in 1788? Take California for another example. California joined the Union in 1850, became a state where previously had been a territory, and joined the Union in 1850. Now, if California decides to become its own self-governing country, with all the complications that may come along with that decision, if California wants to unjoin from the United States, does it or should it have a right to do so? Thinking of the fact that it joined the Union in 1850 when none of us were alive and none of our current representatives in California were alive, we had no choice in that decision, and we have no direct choice now. So if California wants to exit the United States and become its own peaceful country relative toward the United States, not go to war with it or anything, even if that is an unwise decision, even if it does so for a bad reason, should California be allowed to do that? That's what kind of the question is that you're dealing with regarding nullification and secession. Should other, not just in the United States, other places in the world, if Scotland doesn't want to be part of Great Britain, should it be able to exit? If Quebec doesn't want to be part of Canada, should it be allowed to exit? If Catalonia, which is in Spain, decides it wants to be no longer part of Spain, but govern themselves, should it be allowed to declare independence? Whatever the reasons may be for all of those are real examples in the last few years. The question is, should that concept be something that is allowed to happen? Okay. Now let me make a quick edit here. Make an edit because I said technically all the states had a choice of whether or not to join the Union. But there is some historical argument that many in Rhode Island did not want to join the United States and accept the Constitution because they believed that they were giving up power. And since Rhode Island was so small, that they were going to be overwhelmed by being on a team with so many bigger, more numerous, and more powerful states, and that they'd be giving up too much power to do that and never have the control over themselves, that other states would basically be making a bunch of the decisions for them, which there is a great deal of truth to. So many in Rhode Island did not want to join the Constitution, many did, or join the Union under the Constitution, and many did. There were some threats made against Rhode Island that they would be not allowed to trade with other states in the Union if they did not accept the Constitution and join in that Union. So there is some practical things that they tried to do to coerce Rhode Island into the Union, and Rhode Island eventually acquiesced and joined. We will end that portion